Hey everyone, welcome back. You know, it's wild how we navigate the workplace, right? It's like there's this whole set of unspoken rules, these covert contracts we're all expected to follow.
Yeah.
And I know you're particularly interested in how these contracts have changed over time.
Yeah.
Especially pre-feminism and Marxism.
That's right.
Well, today we're diving deep into Conrad Riker's Leadership Evolve.
It's a good one.
It's a real eye-opener.
Yeah.
It suggests that masculinity, something often framed as a problem,
Right.
could actually be the solution.
Riker doesn't sugarcoat anything.
Ooh.
He doesn't sugarcoat the challenges men face these days.
Okay.
And he uses personal stories, like from his own life,
Oh, wow.
to show this kind of double bind of needing to be strong yet vulnerable,
Right.
which is tough to navigate, you know?
It is.
Imagine being told to open up emotionally, but then
Right.
being judged as weak for doing so.
Oh, yeah.
That's the tightrope a lot of men feel like they're walking.
It's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly.
So Riker's saying men are practically built for leadership,
Yeah.
both biologically and how society raises them. But somewhere along the line, those strengths became liability.
That's what he's arguing, yeah.
Wow.
He tackles some hot button topics,
Okay.
like the glass cliff. Have you heard of that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
This idea that women get promoted to leadership during crises,
Uh-huh.
setting them up to fail.
Right.
Riker uses real-world examples like
Okay.
a CEO who turned a struggling company around after a female leader couldn't.
Wow. So he's using that to kind of question that whole narrative.
Yeah, is it really about setting women up to fail, or are
Yeah.
there other factors at play?
Right. And it makes you wonder if it really is about setting women up to fail.
Right.
Or if there are other things, other factors going on.
Exactly.
And this ties into the meritocracy debate, right? Because Riker cites this study
Yes.
from the National Bureau of Economic Research
Yep.
that found company profits actually dipped after implementing gender quotas.
It's a very interesting point.
It is. It is.
And he argues that these initiatives, while well-intentioned, can actually breed resentment
Right.
and make men feel like their hard work and talent
Yeah.
are being overlooked in favor of just meeting these diversity targets.
It's like the system is rigged,
Yeah.
but not in their favor. But Riker isn't saying diversity is bad, is he?
No, not at all.
No.
He's advocating for balance,
Okay.
recognizing that men and women both bring unique strengths to the table.
Okay.
And he emphasizes the importance of individual merit
Right.
and how overlooking that can actually hurt everyone.
That makes sense.
It does.
He also talks about male ambition,
Yes.
which is often portrayed so negatively these days.
It is.
But he argues it can be this powerful force for good
Right.
if it's channeled correctly.
Yeah, he uses examples like Elon Musk's drive to get to Mars.
Wow.
You know, that intrinsic motivation, that inner fire.
Yeah.
That's what fuels real success,
Right.
not just chasing external rewards or validation.
Oh, I see.
But then he contrasts that with, you know, guys like John from the book
Okay.
who get stuck chasing those external rewards,
Yeah.
end up burnt out, empty.
Yeah, it's the difference between passion and just kind of going through the motion.
Right. Exactly.
Like you're doing it, but you're not really all in. So it's not enough to just be ambitious.
Right.
You need to be driven by something deeper.
Yes, you need that inner fire.
I like that.
And that's where Riker's take on vulnerability is really interesting.
Okay.
Because he gets that men are expected to be both strong and vulnerable.
Right.
But, you know, how can you be both?
It's true. It's true.
It's confusing. It's
Yeah.
frustrating for a lot of men.
Yeah.
And he doesn't shy away from that contradiction.
Good.
He uses examples like Howard Schultz,
Okay.
the guy behind Starbucks.
Oh, yeah.
You know, his emotional intelligence,
Right.
his ability to connect with people on a personal level was a huge part of his success.
So it's not about suppressing your emotions entirely.
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's more about learning to harness them.
Right.
You know, like vulnerability can be a strength
Uh-huh.
if you know how to wield it.
If you know how to use it the right way.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he provides strategies for men
Yeah.
to show vulnerability without, you know, being perceived as weak.
Yeah.
It's about self-awareness, emotional intelligence,
Right.
which, you know, let's face it, are skills we could all benefit from.
We could.
So we've talked about some of the challenges, but what about some practical advice?
Yeah. Let's get into that.
Riker talks a lot about assertiveness versus aggression.
Okay. What's the difference?
It's huge.
Oh, really?
He uses these great examples like Sherlock Holmes
Well.
or James Bond. You know, they're confident, they know what they want,
Yeah.
but they don't bully or intimidate to get it. It's about expressing your needs
Yeah.
clearly, respectfully,
Yeah.
without stepping on others.
I like that assertiveness is a tool, not a weapon.
Exactly.
Oh.
And he even gives tips on how to communicate assertively.
Oh, cool.
Like your body language, your tone of voice.
Little things can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And he ties this into the importance of building resilience,
Right.
looking at historical figures,
Yeah.
you know, emphasizing self-reliance, mental and physical strength.
Right.
understanding how things like testosterone impact men's behavior.
Okay, so strength and resilience are crucial.
Yeah.
But what about when things get messy? Riker doesn't avoid topics like emotional manipulation in the workplace, does he?
No, he doesn't.
He even talks about these tactics men might face.
Yeah, like gaslighting,
Oh, wow.
guilt trip, that kind of thing.
He's tough.
But what's great is he doesn't just point out the problem.
No.
He offers solutions. He says it's crucial to recognize these tactics early on, set boundaries, seek support if needed.
That's huge.
It is.
It's easy to feel alone when you're being manipulated, you know?
It is. You feel like you're going crazy.
Right.
So knowing you're not alone
Yeah.
and having those strategies to protect yourself can be a game changer.
That's great.
And then he talks about storytelling
Oh, okay.
as a powerful tool for leaders.
Interesting.
You know, he thinks it's especially important for men to reclaim their own narrative.
What does he mean by that?
He believes in these authentic, powerful stories that reflect the realities of male leadership and inspire others to take action.
So it's not just about talking the talk, it's about walking the walk.
Right. And sharing the stories that got you there.
Right.
He even uses stories from his own leadership journey,
Oh.
showing how storytelling can shape company culture
Okay.
and motivate teams to do incredible things. Now, as we all know, the workplace is changing so fast.
It is.
How does Riker see traditional male roles evolving in this new landscape?
Good question.
He acknowledges the increasing diversity, but also that men have unique strengths to bring to the table. And he uses examples from like tech and other fields to show how traditional male roles are adapted, emphasizing the need for both collaboration and strong leadership.
Right.
And that's where his discussion of male archetypes comes in. He talks about alphas, betas, omegas, each with their strengths and weaknesses. The alpha, the classic pack leader, assertive, dominant. The beta, more supportive, working behind the scenes. And the omega, the independent thinker, the nonconformist.
What I find interesting is he doesn't see these as rigid boxes. He thinks men can embody aspects of each, depending on the situation.
It's very fluid.
It is.
It's about understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, and how to use them effectively.
It's about knowing your tools and when to use them.
Exactly. He even brings in the Sigma male.
Oh, yeah.
The lone wolf operating outside of those traditional hierarchies. It adds another layer of complexity to the discussion.
It does.
Showing there are many paths to success.
Right.
So we've covered a lot, from the challenges to the strength that men bring to the workplace. Let's circle back to remasculinizing leadership. What's Riker getting at there?
What is he trying to say?
He's pushing back against this idea that male leadership is inherently toxic or problematic. He's advocating for balance. You know, masculine and feminine leadership qualities, recognizing both genders have essential skills to offer. It's not about going back in time or pushing women out, but acknowledging the value
of what men bring and creating an environment where they can thrive.
So it's not an us versus them situation. It's about recognizing the value of both and finding a way to work together.
Exactly.
I like that.
And that ties into challenging that glass cliff narrative. He believes that focusing on promoting women during crises can actually undermine male leadership.
I see.
And perpetuate this idea that men can't handle tough situations.
It's a complex issue, for sure.
It is.
But I appreciate Riker's nuanced approach to it.
Me too.
Recognizing challenges, understanding different viewpoints, and trying to find solutions that benefit everyone.
Absolutely. And he believes this masculine advantage can be especially useful in situations that need quick thinking, decisive action, and a willingness to take risks.
Which, let's face it, are pretty common in today's world.
They are.
So we need men who can step up
and make those tough calls.
Exactly.
But it's about calculated risks, not just jumping into things blindly.
You got it.
It's about weighing the potential reward and the consequence before making a move.
Exactly.
So it's about having that grit, that determination to keep going, even when things get tough, and viewing failures as opportunities to learn and grow, not as the end of the world.
It's a mindset shift.
It is.
And it can make all the difference.
Absolutely.
Riker offers some really practical strategies for building that resilience.
Like what?
Like having a strong support network, setting realistic goals, and focusing on your strengths.
It sounds like he's providing a roadmap for men.
He is.
To navigate a world that often feels hostile to traditional masculinity.
It does. It does.
So how do we turn that around?
Well, I think that's what Riker's trying to address in this book. He's offering solutions. He's offering hope.
Good.
And he's reminding men that they have a valuable role to play.
Right.
In the world.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
Not at all.
Okay.
There's a lot to be optimistic about.
Good.
And I think Riker's book is a great place to start.
All right, so we've talked about this masculine advantage for the historical context.
Yeah.
But let's bring it back to the individual.
Okay.
What are some practical steps men can take to reclaim their power?
Good question.
And lead effectively today?
He stresses self-awareness,
Okay.
knowing your strengths, weaknesses, values, priorities, and your own leadership style.
So it's about knowing yourself.
Exactly.
What makes you tick, what motivates you,
Yeah.
good at.
Yeah, taking inventory of your internal toolbox.
Yeah, like that.
Once you have that,
Yeah.
you can build on those strengths. Find ways to overcome your weaknesses.
Right.
And he also talks about setting clear boundaries.
That's interesting.
It is.
We often think of boundaries as something women need,
Right.
especially at work.
Yeah,
But Riker's arguing that men need them too.
they do.
Why does he think that?
Because boundaries protect your time,
Okay.
your energy, your emotional well-being.
Right.
They stop you from getting caught up in unnecessary drama, taking on responsibilities that aren't yours.
I see.
And they allow you to focus on what's truly important.
It's not about being self, it's about taking care of yourself.
Exactly.
So you can show up as your best self.
Precisely.
He even gives specific tips
He does.
for setting those boundaries.
Saying no
Okay.
to requests that don't align with your priorities, delegating effectively,
Right.
recognizing that you can't do it all, and it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It is.
And another key element of reclaiming your power is honing your communication skills. So we're talking about being clear, concise, confident
Yes.
in how you communicate.
Both verbal
Okay.
and in writing.
Right.
It's about making sure your message is heard and understood.
Right. And this ties into that distinction between assertiveness and aggression.
Does.
It's finding that sweet spot where you're confident, but you're not being a jerk.
You're not bullying people.
Right.
You're expressing your needs.
Yeah.
But respectful. Riker even talks about body language.
Interesting.
Maintaining eye contact. Standing tall.
Right.
Using open gesture.
Okay.
All of these can project confidence and authority.
So it's not about being someone you're not.
Right.
But
It's about recognizing how those nonverbal cues influence how others see you and using them to your advantage.
it's about owning your space, your voice, your presence.
Exactly. And that leads to another important point, taking calculated risks. He argues that men are often naturally inclined to take risks, and that can be a huge asset at work.
But it's about calculated risks. Right.
You got it.
Not just jumping in blindly.
Not just being reckless.
Right. It's about assessing those potential rewards and consequences before making a move.
Yeah, it's a little more strategic. And it ties into resilience.
Right.
Taking risks means you're going to face setbacks, you're going to face failure, but you have to develop the resilience to bounce back from those and learn from your mistakes.
It's about having that grit, that to keep going.
Even when things get tough.
Yeah. And viewing failures as learning experiences, not as...
Exactly.
It's almost like reframing your mindset.
It is.
From avoiding failure to learning from everything.
It is. It's a growth mindset.
Right.
And Riker believes
Yeah.
by embracing that perspective, men can achieve incredible things.
So it's not about being perfect. It's about learning and growing.
Exactly.
That's a good message.
It is.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, it's important to remember that Riker's book isn't just a self-help guide.
Right.
It's also a call to action.
He's
urging men to step up, reclaim their rightful place as leaders in the world.
He is. He's challenging them to be the best versions of themselves, embrace their strengths, use them to make a positive impact.
So it's about being a good man, a strong man.
Yes.
A man who's making a difference.
Exactly.
I like that.
And he believes that by embracing their true nature, men can create a better future for themselves, their families, and the world around them.
I think that's a message a lot of men need to hear.
I agree.
So as we move into the next part of our deep dive, I want to shift our focus to a topic that's often overlooked. In discussions about masculinity, emotional intelligence.
It's so important.
It is.
Touched on it briefly earlier,
Right.
but I think it deserves a deeper look.
Yeah, I agree.
Why is emotional intelligence so crucial,
Especially
for men in leadership roles?
It's a great question, and it's one we'll tackle
I will.
in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned.
Thanks for listening.
It's been a pleasure. So, we were talking about emotional intelligence.
Right. Yeah, we touched on it a little bit.
And why it's so crucial for men, especially in leadership roles.
Especially for leaders. Yeah.
Because it really is the key to building those strong relationships.
Okay.
Fostering trust, inspiring others,
Right.
It's about understanding your own emotions, recognizing the emotions of others, and using that knowledge to navigate those social complexities effectively.
So it's not just about being touchy-feely, right?
Yeah.
It's about understanding how humans work, how we interact, and using that understanding to, get good results.
Achieve positive outcomes.
Yes, exactly.
And Riker argues that emotional intelligence is not a weakness, but a strength, especially for men.
Interesting.
He believes that by developing their emotional intelligence, men can become even more effective leaders, capable of inspiring, motivating, connecting with their teams on a deeper level.
So how do we do that? How do we actually improve our emotional intelligence?
Riker provides a number of strategies, including practicing active listening, developing empathy, managing stress effectively, and seeking feedback from others.
So it's about being present, being aware, being willing to,
learn,
even grow.
Absolutely. And he emphasizes that this is an ongoing process.
Right.
You don't just become emotionally intelligent overnight.
It takes time.
It takes time, effort, and a willingness to challenge yourself.
Push yourself.
Yeah.
Now, Riker also delves into the specific challenges men in expressing their emotions.
Especially in the workplace.
Especially at work.
We talked about that double bind, strong and vulnerable.
Right.
How does that play out when it comes to actually showing your emotions?
That's a tough one.
It is.
Because, men are often told to suppress those emotions.
Yeah, keep a stiff upper lip.
Right.
Don't appear weak.
Yeah.
Vulnerable.
Man up. Right.
Exactly.
We hear that all the time.
But he argues that that kind of suppression can be really damaging, both personally and professionally.
So it's not healthy to bottle everything up.
No, it's not.
Right.
You got to find healthy ways to express those emotions.
Like what? What are some examples?
Talking to a trusted friend, a therapist, engaging in physical activity, pursuing creative outlets.
Finding what works for you.
Exactly.
Right.
And he emphasizes that expressing emotions doesn't mean losing control, or becoming overly dramatic.
Right. It's about finding that balance.
Yeah. It's about expressing yourself authentically, but also appropriately.
Right, for the situation. So it's about being in touch with your emotions, understanding what they're telling you, and finding healthy ways to express them.
Exactly.
It's about being emotionally intelligent.
Precisely.
Riker believes that by embracing emotional intelligence, men can not only become better, but also live happier, more fulfilling lives.
Absolutely.
I like that.
It's about the whole package.
It is. It is.
Now, as we continue our deep dive, I want to shift gears a little bit to another important aspect of the book. This concept of reclaiming the narrative.
We touched on this earlier.
Briefly.
But let's dive a little deeper.
Yeah.
What does Riker mean by reclaiming the narrative?
Well, he argues that men have been bombarded with negative messages about masculinity. In recent years, they're told they're toxic, they're privileged, their leadership style is outdated, ineffective.
We hear this a lot.
We do. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And he's pushing back against that.
Okay.
He believes that men need to start telling their own stories, share their own experiences, highlight the positive contributions that men have made.
It's about taking control of the conversation.
It is. It's about reclaiming that narrative.
Yep.
And he offers some strategies.
Like what?
Engaging in open and honest conversation about masculinity, supporting organizations that promote positive male role models, challenging negative stereotypes whenever you encounter them.
So it's about speaking up.
Yeah.
Speaking out.
Yeah.
Refusing to let others define what it means to be a man.
Exactly. It's about owning your own narrative.
I like that.
Defining yourself on your own terms.
Yeah.
And he believes that by reclaiming that narrative, men can create a more balanced, nuanced understanding of masculinity. One that celebrates the strengths and values
that men bring to the table.
Exactly.
Now, one of the specific narratives he challenged is this idea of the glass cliff. This concept that women are often promoted to leadership roles during times of crisis.
Yes.
Setting them up for failure.
The poison chalice.
Right. And Riker argues that this narrative is often used to undermine male leadership.
It is.
Suggesting that men are incapable of handling difficult situations.
Like they can only lead when things are good.
Right.
But when the going gets tough, women are called in to clean up the mess.
Right.
But what's insightful here is that Riker doesn't deny that women face challenges in the workplace.
Right.
He acknowledges that sexism and discrimination are real issues, but he also believes that this glass cliff narrative oversimplifies things.
It does.
It oversimplifies the complex dynamics of leadership and perpetuates harmful stereotypes about both men and women.
So it's about recognizing the nuances?
Yes.
Right.
It's about that there are multiple perspectives, and simplistic explanations rarely capture the full truth.
It's about looking beyond the surface and seeing the complexity. And Riker argues that by challenging these simplistic narratives, we can create a more equitable
and inclusive workplace.
For everyone.
For everyone.
All right. As we move into the final part of our deep dive, I want to shift our focus to the future of masculinity.
Okay, so
we've talked about the challenges, the strengths, the strategies for reclaiming power.
Right.
But where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here?
How does Riker see masculinity evolve in the years to come?
He believes we're in the midst of a masculinity crisis.
Crisis.
A crisis, yeah.
What does he mean by that?
A time when those traditional notions of manhood are being challenged and redefined.
He sees this as both a challenge and an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Right.
A time of uncertainty,
Yeah.
but also possibility.
So how do we navigate that?
Well, he believes that this crisis can lead to a more positive and fulfilling expression of masculinity. One that embraces both strength and vulnerability, both assertiveness and compassion.
So it's about moving beyond those rigid, stereotypical definitions of manhood.
It is.
And creating a more nuanced, balanced understanding of what it means to be a man.
In today's world, it's about breaking free from those limitations of the past and embracing a more expansive vision
I like that.
of masculinity.
Now, what does that vision look like?
Well, he believes that this new masculinity will be characterized by a number of key traits.
Like what?
Authenticity,
Okay.
emotional intelligence, resilience, and purpose.
Let's break those down a bit. What does he mean by authenticity?
It's about being true to yourself, your values, your passions, rather than trying to conform to external expectations.
So living in alignment with who you are.
Exactly.
Not who society tells you to be. And emotional intelligence, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
But it's about understanding and managing your own emotions, recognizing those of others, and using that to navigate effectively.
Right. And then resilience. That's the ability to bounce back from setbacks, overcome challenges, keep moving forward.
So having that grit, that determination.
Purpose is about having that clear sense of direction, knowing what you stand for, what you want to achieve.
Having a vision for your life, pursuing it.
With passion and commitment. It's about living a life of purpose.
So it's about being a good man,
a
strong man, a man who's making a positive impact.
Exactly. And he believes that by embracing these traits, men can create a better future for themselves, their family, and the world around them.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
It sounds like he's painting a pretty hopeful picture.
He is.
Of the future of masculinity.
He's optimistic.
Yeah.
But he also acknowledges that this transition won't be easy.
Right.
There will be challenges, setbacks, resistance.
It's like anything, changing the status quo.
It is.
It's never easy.
You're going to face pushback. Ending.
People are going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. Even men themselves resisting this shift.
Now, you mentioned earlier, you're interested in the history of institutions.
Yes.
Before, as you put it, feminist and Marxist influence.
That's right.
Does Riker address that historical perspective?
He does. He dives deep into it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a big part of the book explores the historical context of masculinity, how it's been shaped by social, cultural, political forces.
So he's not just saying men are good at this. He's looking at how, throughout history, those skills were put to use.
Exactly. He argues that many of the institutions we rely on today, governments, businesses, religious groups, were largely built by men.
It's interesting to think about that.
It is.
Not to erase anyone's contribution, but to acknowledge that different eras had different ways of doing things.
Absolutely.
So Riker's saying that understanding this history is crucial for men today.
It is.
If they want to reclaim their power.
He believes it's essential.
Wow.
Not to romanticize the past, but to learn from it. Recognizing men's historical contributions can give them a stronger sense of identity and purpose. Which is incredibly powerful when navigating the complexities of today's world.
It's like you can't know where you're going. If you don't know where you've been.
Exact.
And that leads to another point he makes.
Mentorship.
Riker's a big believer.
Huge believer.
In men having strong male role models.
Absolutely, to guide them on their journey.
Now, what's interesting is that he goes beyond that traditional older man guides younger man model.
Yeah, he believes in peer mentorship.
To mentorship.
Yeah, guys around the same age, experience level, supporting each other, learning from each other.
So it's about creating a community.
Yes.
A brotherhood of men committed to growth, leadership, making a positive impact.
He provides practical advice for finding a mentor, building strong relationships, creating that support system.
So it's not just about finding one perfect mentor.
Right.
It's about
having a network of guys
who you can rely on.
Exactly.
Who can support you, who can challenge you to grow.
Now, as we wrap up this part of the deep dive, I want to circle back to those covert contracts.
The covert contract.
The unspoken rules, the expectations.
Especially in the workplace.
Especially at work.
It's like we're all playing this game.
It is.
Where the rules keep changing and no one's telling us the new ones.
And Riker's book is like a cheat sheet.
Ooh, I like that.
To understanding those covert contracts. And he argues that many of those traditional expectations around male behavior just don't work anymore.
They're outdated.
They are. It's time for a rewrite.
So instead of feeling trapped by these outdated rules, men can actually create new ones.
They can.
That are more aligned with
their values, their strength, their goals.
It's about taking ownership.
It is.
Not just reacting to a system that might not be serving them anymore.
Recognizing you have the power to renegotiate those contracts, to live and work authentically.
I like that.
That's huge.
It is a powerful message.
It is.
And I think it speaks to a lot of men who are feeling lost, confused, maybe even angry about the way things are.
They feel like they're playing a game they don't understand.
Yeah, exactly.
And Riker offers some guidance. He doesn't give easy answers, but he provides a framework, a way of thinking that's empowering. It's about understanding the challenges, recognizing your strengths, and making conscious choices.
About how you want to move forward.
Exactly.
It's about taking control of your own life.
It is about being the author of your own story.
Not just a character in someone else's.
And I think that's a really powerful message.
It is.
Men of all ages and backgrounds.
Well, it sounds like Riker's offering a roadmap, not just for individual men, but for rethinking masculinity as a whole.
Yeah, he's offering a new vision, a new way of thinking about what it means to be a man in today's world.
And while he's optimistic, he doesn't shy away from the fact that change is hard.
No, he acknowledges that there will be pushback, misunderstandings, even men themselves resisting this shift.
Makes sense. It's like anything, anytime you try to challenge the status quo, you're going to create some friction.
There's always resistance to change.
Right. And you mentioned earlier that you're interested in the history of institutions before, as you put it, feminist and Marxist influence. Does Riker address that at all, that historical perspective?
He does. He dives deep into it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A significant portion of the book explores the historical context of masculinity, how it's been shaped by social, cultural, and political forces over time.
So he's not just saying men are good at this. He's looking at how throughout history those skills were put to use, right?
Exactly. He argues that many of the institutions we rely on today, governments, businesses, even religious groups, were largely built by men.
It's interesting to think about that, not to erase anyone's contribution.
No, not at all.
But to acknowledge that, different eras had different ways of doing things.
Absolutely.
So is Riker saying that understanding this history is crucial for men today if they want to reclaim their power?
He believes it's essential, yeah.
Okay.
Not to romanticize the past, but to learn from it.
To understand it.
Recognizing men's historical contributions can give them a stronger sense of identity and purpose, which is incredibly powerful when navigating the complexities of today's world.
It's like you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been.
Exactly.
And that leads to another point he makes.
Mentorship, yeah, huge.
Riker's a big believer in men having strong male role models, right?
Absolutely. But what's refreshing is that he goes beyond that traditional older man guides younger man model. He also believes in the power of peer mentorship. Yeah, guys around the same age, experience level, supporting and learning from each other.
So it's about creating a community, a brotherhood of men committed to growth, leadership,
making a positive impact.
Exactly.
And he gives really practical advice on finding mentors, building those strong relationships, creating that support system.
Right. That's great. It takes the pressure off finding that one perfect mentor.
Right.
And it acknowledges that we can all learn from each other no matter where we are in life.
Exactly. We all have something to offer and something to learn.
So true.
Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to those covert contracts we talked about at the beginning.
The covert contracts, those unspoken rules.
The unspoken rules.
The expectations, especially in the workplace.
Especially at work.
It's like we're all playing playing this game.
We are.
Where the rules keep changing, and no one is telling us what the new ones are.
And Riker's book is like a cheat sheet to understanding those contracts.
I like that, a cheat sheet.
Yeah. He argues that many of those traditional expectations around male behavior, they just don't work anymore.
They're outdated.
It's time for a rewrite.
So instead of feeling trapped by these outdated rules, men can actually create new ones.
They can create their own.
That are more aligned with their
values, their strengths, their goals.
It's about taking ownership, not just reacting to a system.
Exactly.
That might not be serving them anymore.
Recognizing you have the power to renegotiate those contracts.
Right. To rewrite.
To live and work authentically.
That's powerful.
It is.
It's a really powerful message.
It is a message of hope and empowerment.
And possibility.
Absolutely.
It's about taking control of your own life.
It is.
Writing your own story.
Instead of being a character in someone else's.
Right. And I think that's something that a lot of men are really craving right now.
I agree. They're looking for direction. They're looking for guidance.
Yeah. And Leadership Evolved really provides that.
It does. It gives them a framework, a new perspective.
And most importantly, it gives them hope.
It does. It reminds them that they have the power to create the life they want.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive.
It has.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface of Leadership Evolved.
Yeah, there's so much more to unpack.
But I highly encourage everyone listening to check it out for themselves.
It's a great read.
You can find it on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
Get your copy today.
And until next time, keep diving deep.